Good morning, everybody. It's December 18th, I think. It's Friday. Welcome to the show. Before we begin, I should just tell you I came in half an hour ago, I guess. Made up the background graphics and made the Facebook post. Went to the Twitch stream to check to make sure the feed was live, and I saw all these comments in there. I thought, boy, everybody's here early. And then I thought, why is everybody so angry? And then I realized that I had just plain forgotten the Stratosphere Lounge yesterday. Utterly forgot it. I forgot to say I was going to do it or not do it. It just plain left my head until I got in this morning. So sincere apologies for that. I don't mean to leave anybody hanging, and it's been my policy, with one or two exceptions anyway, over 240, 50 shows to say if I was going to make it or not. And I just plain absolutely flew out of my head. So if you're one of those Strata Loungers that was there last night waiting, my sincere apologies for that. I'm very sorry. I'll try to make sure that I don't let that happen again. We're going to be doing some other stuff on the show today, too. I wanted to talk a little bit about the topic, and then I thought maybe we could, I'll just put some questions up there for some feedback. This is the end of the first week of this new show. The weekend number for the first one on Saturday was really pretty good. It was about 25,000 views. But all week they've been hanging around 10,000. And obviously it takes a while to build up an audience and a new show and all the rest of it. But since things are still very malleable, after we cover kind of the main topic, perhaps we could have a couple of questions that I could ask, and we can figure out if there's ways to improve this or change it or do whatever we need to do to make it more effective in the days and weeks and months to come. Anyway, let's get right in today's topic here. There's a lot of talk during the Tea Party days when the first real major attempt to basically have the government force progressive policies down our throats. Back in the Tea Party days, and people talked about going Galt. Now, for most of you, you know what that term means, but for those of you who don't, just a very, very quick explanation. Ayn Rand wrote a book called Atlas Shrugged, and this is my personal opinion of Atlas Shrugged. I don't know how long it is, but I want to say it's 900 pages. And that's just what it felt like. And of those 900 pages, 300 pages are absolutely golden. They are the most astute, brilliant understanding of how the left works and their morals and their lack of morals and all the rest of it. When fully refined, it is a masterpiece of psychology and prediction. It is unparalleled, in my opinion, when it comes to describing the difference between the people that want to be left alone so that they can improve their lives and other people can improve their lives versus those people who are determined to tell other people how to live. It's unmatched in that regard. I just find that there is so much in that novel that it just seems to, this me just as a writer, it just seems like there's so much kudzu there that if she'd had a really good editor, it could turn into something far more popular than it is, and it's already very popular, but that's just that. The story of Atlas Shrugged is the idea that as the state becomes more and more powerful, takes more and more, enforces more and more regulations on businessmen, all of a sudden, all of the big businessmen, the captains of industry, as they would say when Ayn Rand wrote this, suddenly start to disappear. And the term being used is they're going Galt, because the question everybody's asking is, who is John Galt? John Galt is this mysterious figure who's leading this sort of counter-revolution of the workers and the businessmen and the people who really make the world turn. Atlas, they're the people that hold the world up. And they're disappearing, men and women, they're just vanishing into the mist. And so the term going Galt has been used to describe the idea that the makers are just getting tired of the takers, and they're just going to stop making enough for the takers to take. They're just going to make enough for their families, and they're just going to stop working and stop hiring. Not stop working, stop hiring, and let the whole thing grind to a halt. This is, I think, a profoundly important idea, because the time when this government of ours, state government in California, other governments not so bad, some are even worse, state governments, but certainly the federal government with the deep state and the lack of enforcement of law and the people in the upper echelons of power and corruption of the Justice Department and the FBI and an attorney general who pretends to be working when he's really working behind your back. The list of disappointments goes on and on and on so far that I don't need to spell them out for you. I can't bear to repeat them myself. And so there is, in the wake of this election theft, unless something really dramatic happens at this point, we have to ask ourselves, well, what are we going to do with this new regime? Candidate Biden may be sworn in as president on January 20th, but he will not be the president of the United States. Not just not be my president, he won't be the president until and unless he and the rest of the Democratic Party can come up with absolutely convincing reasons why all the overwhelming evidence for voter fraud just isn't true. And they're not going to do that. They haven't even tried. So we all know the answer to that. So the question is, moving forward for the next 4 years, since this is how deeply entrenched the rot is, what do we do about it? And the point I wanted to make here is that when people talk about going Galt, they always talk about dropping out of society, disappearing, taking their football and going home. But what's lost in that aspect of the conversation is the fact that they didn't just leave. They went somewhere else. They went to a place called Gulch, which was basically a collection of all the hardest working and brightest people, and had a invisibility cloak over it, some kind of reflective shield. Nobody knew where it was. But the point of that is really important. We have to decide what we're going to do in the next 4 years. And I personally think that not only is this the correct way, but also the likely way. I think that the anti-Americans haven't got the faintest idea what real civil disobedience is. They haven't got the faintest idea of what honest people will do when they get angry enough. They're angry all the time. Protesting is what they do. That's their profession. That's their skill set. When the honest people of this country, the atlases that hold the world up, and you don't have to be the president of a giant manufacturing concern to be an atlas. If you work in a just a body shop and you're a grease monkey and you're doing a good job repairing people's cars for honest price, you keep the world turning. And so the question is, what do we do about this? Because this federal government and this group of political leaders of both parties no longer looks at us as citizens. They certainly no longer look at us as people that they are representing. By and large, for the most part now, and for a while now, both state and federal governments look at the American citizen as a food source. We're a host organism to them. That's what we are. And if you think about it, that's exactly how they treat us. They treat us like a host organism. They don't want anything bad to happen to us, not because they care about us, but because it's important to them as parasites that the host organism survives. And that means keeping the host organism safe and allowing the host organism to continue to survive and giving it minimum nutrients so that it can continue to churn out blood for them to suck away. And a lot of the people in this country are getting pretty tired of being treated like host organisms, where not only are we being asked, we're not being asked, where we're being coerced into giving more and more and more of the results of our hard work and labor over to a state that not only has no respect for us, but simply has broken the social compact and is no longer beholden to the laws of the land and is no longer beholden to the idea that the people elect who's going to be given political power. They have become an entire species of parasite, and we are their host organism. And I don't know about you, but to me, the thing that is salient about this observation, which I think is pretty solid, is that, and this is really important, a host organism can not only survive without the parasite, it is much healthier without the parasite. The parasite without a host organism dies. That's how it works. This is not a symbiosis. This is not an exchange where one species or another species provides something that the other animal needs and back and forth. For example, remora fish, they stick to the bottom of let's pick the other ones, the ones that do the cleaning. There are fish that clean the gills and stuff of sharks, and they eat the little microbes or whatever, algae, whatever the hell's on there. And so they are taking something from the animal, but they're also giving something back by cleaning it up. That's a symbiosis. These people are parasites, and they don't provide anything. If you think about what a politician provides, if the politician is not providing representation of what you as a citizen need in terms of your protection of your rights and your property and whatever else, if they're not doing that, then they are in no way symbiotic. There's no to and fro or tit for tat or quid pro quo or any other collection of three words you want to use. They are simply parasitical. They are simply dependent on us, and they are sucking more and more and more life and energy and blood out of the work that we do, and they do less and less for it, and they get fatter and fatter and fatter, more and more competent, more and more arrogant, more and more dismissive, more and more contemptuous of the host organism that keeps them alive, and that's us. So this is something that has to stay in the forefront of our minds, and that is this. The makers don't need the takers, but the takers cannot survive without the makers. And that gives the makers tremendous power, and that is the entire thesis of Atlas Shrugged. The idea that if the producers, the makers, the food source, suddenly decides not to be a food source anymore for these parasites, and simply just leaves, disappears, they'll start to consume lower and lower quality food, and then they'll start to consume each other, but they can't actually produce anything because they don't have the biology for it. They don't have the metabolism for it. They're incapable of it. Animals cannot synthesize energy from sunlight. That's what plants do, and makers cannot. Makers can survive on their own. Takers have to have makers. They're parasitic. They're predators, really, is what they are. And the predators have gotten out of control. And if we were sheep, we just have to deal with it. But if we're not sheep, then we have a recourse. If we're a herd of sheep, then the ticks and the fleas and the leeches and whatever get thicker and thicker and thicker on us until we sicken and die. And if we're a pack of wolves, then we will find a way to get those ticks off of us and go on and be happier, and the ticks can go to hell where they belong. So the idea of coming civil disobedience is, I think, a far too mild term for the kind of thing that I think is necessary and God knows is deserved, because I think that after watching the government shut down the American people for the last 10 months or so, I think it's time for the American people to shut down the government. And I mean shut it down. Not just, I know they print their own money, and I understand all of that. But if there were to be the kind of massive economic restructuring that I'm thinking is necessary, then that might get their full attention. There's a lot of different balls in the air here. One of the big issues, of course, is, as we've said many times and prior to the show, and we'll continue to say, the great single issue for me is the California virus. When people can leave an area that they've ruined politically and go to an area that they haven't ruined politically and then start ruining that area, that is the problem to solve, and that's a tough one. But with that said, I think that candidate Biden and candidate Harris and the people that committed this crime might be in for a real surprise when they get a measure of just how absolutely angry the American people are. Angry is not the word for it, and even furious is not the word for it. Incandescent is as close as I can come, and also filled with a terrible resolve. At least in my case, I am, and I suspect you probably are too. So the problem facing us is not just depriving them of the food source. That's going Galt. That's leaving. That's like saying, okay, I was going to open a new branch of the restaurant, or I was going to open a new franchise of the dry cleaning service on this location. I'm not going to do that now. I'm going to take care of my family and my loyal employees, and if that means no jobs for people, then okay, that's that. It also means things like I don't see any private business owner has any obligation whatsoever to continue hiring people who vote for that business to go under. That is not only an ethical decision to fire those people first, I think it's insane and immoral not to do that. Are you saying you're being fired for your politics? That's precisely what I'm saying. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. I am saying that if your politics consists of voting for policies that make it impossible for me to stay in business and to continue to pay you, then you are the agent of my destruction, my business's destruction, my family's destruction. You're the agent of the destruction of all of my hopes and dreams. You're the agent of the destruction of everything that makes this country work, and I am not morally obligated to pay for you while you destroy me and my business. Out. You wanted socialism? Go get it. So that aspect of going Galt is relatively clear and frankly relatively consequence free. I mean, there's no one yet anyway that can whip you into working harder or whip you into growing your business here in California. Mark Zuckerberg had the temerity to say something that even Steve Jobs had a lot of temerity to say, and that was 10, 15 years ago. Zuckerberg actually said, I could never start Facebook in California under today's circumstances, today's climate. And he's the guy that created today's climate. He put hundreds of millions of dollars into this election, previous elections. He wants guaranteed income, and now he's moving or is complaining about the state, the enormous tax rates that he's been able to escape from, and some portion of them he has to pay. That's a different issue, and I that's the problem. But so it's a two-part equation. It's not just that going Galt means we are leaving this society economically, and we are going to let the parasites starve. That's half of it. The other half of it is not only shutting down the source of food and money and energy to the people that are oppressing you and feeding off of you, but it also means you're not only going Galt by leaving society, you're going Gulch by going to Galt's Gulch, where the people who deserve an economy and honest treatment and hard work live. So you can't just do one half of these things and shut your growth down or whatever the case may be. You also at the same time have to find a way to continue to employ and to grow and prosper with the people who deserve it and who are willing to make the effort to share in your good fortune, everybody else's good fortune. By the way, I'm so sick of that term. This is an unfortunate person. This person is poor. This person is rich. They're very fortunate. We're very fortunate. The fortune has very little to do with it. There's no question that fortune is enormously important in terms of ding, here's where you're born. But my experience of watching people who were born very, very rich has not impressed me at all. I think the people that are born into great wealth are the most, as a general rule, the most worthless people on the planet, and the unhappiest as well. So when we say that, oh, this guy, we've been very fortunate, it's like, no, not really. You've worked your tail off from the beginning of your life as an adult at 17, 14, 15, 16. I started when I was 13. I'm sure most of you did as well, or earlier. And good fortune, and the reason you may have whatever meager holdings you still have left, implies that somehow this was luck, that the wealth fairy flew over the land and decided, no money for you, no money for you. Oh, I like you, you have blue eyes, or whatever the case they're trying to make now. Ding, you can be rich, no money for you. It's not got anything to do with fortune. It's got to do with life decisions and choices, discipline, integrity, willingness to work, courage, all the rest of it. So in the years to come, fighting against this theft of this government, this is a two-part equation. The first part, depriving the government of, not just the government of tax revenues. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about political fallout. If to the degree where the second that these criminals take office, the country essentially just goes into economic hell. Just stay with me on this, because I'm not talking about just blindly hurting our own people. On the contrary, I'm trying to find a way to avoid doing that. It has to be made clear to the people in the middle, and even to the people who are orchestrating this, that this isn't going to work. No matter how much you can cheat the election and cheat the government, you cannot force us to be your slaves and continue to work for you and have you take more and more and more of this stuff and treat us worse and worse and worse and continue to have legal authority over us. We're just not going to do it. We're not going to do it. And since stealing the government means stealing the means of legal coercion, that gives them a rather powerful weapon to enforce their will, but they can't make you innovate. They can't make you grow. And they're doing everything in their power, at least in my state, to put you out of business. So you have to start asking yourself if that's what they want. Maybe that's what we ought to give them good and hard. I feel that, and I felt continuously, that the only way for people to lose their taste for socialism, this modern kind of socialism chic that is espoused by millionaires and billionaires, is to let people experience it. Now, I think that's the only thing that's going to convert the people who have grown up in a capitalist society, these young people talking about how great socialism is, and Bernie and stuff and his three houses, and they're sitting there with their $800, $900, $1,000 smart device, and they're talking on billions of dollars worth of communications networks and equipment and all the rest of this stuff. And they're paying billions of dollars to things like Instagram and all the rest of it so they can talk about how evil capitalism is. Well, those people need to experience the reality of what happens when the makers say we're done. No, we're done. We used to think that we had a rule of order and law. We were willing to obey that, and we were willing to work under that because everybody thrived. But this has turned into organized theft, and furthermore, it's turned into a violation of the promise that the government has with the people. So to hell with you, we pound sand. We don't give a damn about you, and we don't give a damn about the people that have voted for you. That's what they did. Now it's their time to experience the consequences of their choice. And if there's no bad consequences for your bad choices, then there will not be any change in your bad decisions. So the part about this is the thing that these morons don't understand and will never understand, ever. You see a shadow of it when you hear the Democrats saying, well, what happened to, we should be unified now that Orange Man is gone. So, oh, you have no idea what's coming for you. No idea about what your expected unity is going to look like. You think you know, and you think you've pulled this off, but I think you don't have the faintest idea what's coming your way. So, declining to grow, taking money that you might have spent on a new fleet of trucks or whatever and putting it in the bank and sitting on it and taking care of your families and so on. This is the thing that they don't understand about wealthy people, successful people generally. I'm not talking about inherited wealth. I'm talking about people who became wealthy through hard work and providing a service that other people were willing to voluntarily pay for, as in the good old days. People like that are not inclined to just sit there and bleed out. And the thing that the anti-Americans don't understand is that they expect that we will continue to do this forever. They really do. They really honestly think that we have no choice but to continue working and to continue to provide them with a food source, but we don't. So the two parts of this equation, one part is easy, and that is the part where you say, okay, I have loyal employees and I have employees who are voting for the destruction of this business and regulations, whatever the case may be. I'm going to cut whatever ones I have to, and if I have to cut people, I am only going to cut the people that are contributing to the demise of this company or enterprise of any kind, and I'm going to do my level best to hang on to the people that deserve to be held on to. And that aspect of it is relatively straightforward, because there's nothing so mobile as a rich person. This idea that they can force rich people to just bend to their will, there's nothing. As people fleeing California show, the wealthiest people just move. They just get out of there. And I want some consequences for those people. I really do, but that's a different story. The hard part is, how do you maintain and generate an economy within an economy? How do you simply not accept the fact, no, we're not just shutting down and life is going to be miserable. And that's not what we're saying. We're saying we are moving our efforts and our fruits of our labor, we are moving it from a world where you get it, and we're moving it to another world where we get it or keep it. We're moving to a world where there's going to be an economy within the economy, and we are going to take care of our own people. And we're not only going to survive, we're going to thrive. We're going to thrive because we don't have hundreds or thousands of leeches, ticks, and fleas all over us, drawing our strength and drinking our blood. That aspect of it is a tougher nut to crack. One of the things that can be done is you can basically just do what they do with their Cloward Priven strategy. And that is overwhelm the system. And what I mean by that is, I'm not saying don't pay your taxes or anything, because that's something that they can get you on, unless everybody decided to do that at the same time, in which case, then the game would really be over, right? And that's the one thing they genuinely fear more than anything. More than anything. The IRS has for my entire life had powers unmatched by any other aspect of the federal government. They are the Inquisition, and they have the powers of the Inquisition. They're not bound by any other laws or restrictions or oversight. They have virtually unlimited power. And the anti-Americans in the federal government who created this monstrosity and those who depend on it for their food supply have not just understood that it's very powerful, they've built it in such a way as to inspire terror, really a kind of terror among people. The idea that there are people out there armed with laws that can take away whatever they want from you and genuinely not only put you out of business, but genuinely conceivably put you in jail because you're not giving them enough money. Those people have to have the powers of terror. They have to be the equivalent of the Inquisition. Nobody asked for the IRS audit. No one is expecting the IRS audit. One more time, I'll get it right on the third time. No one expects the IRS audit. So they terrorize people. And the one thing that scares the daylights out of them is the ongoing realization, which never seems to occur to us, that if everybody just decided, no, I'm not going to pay taxes this year, you can come and put all of us in jail. At that point, they'd be finished, right? And that is the A-bomb that we have in reserve. So the problem then is, okay, how do you, if you're going to set up a community within a community, if you're going to set up a virtual Gulch, where we're not only depriving our oppressors and the criminals that have taken over this government, we're not only depriving them of their food source and their energy source, we are also going to take those revenues and those products and those services and those ideas and put them into a separate economy for the success and the growth and the prosperity of people who are willing to reciprocate by either working hard or coming up with other ideas or being the grease monkey in the repair shop. And I say grease monkey with the highest respect. I can't begin to tell you how much more respect I have for the average janitor that takes their job seriously, or hotel maid, over any college professor who's talking about socialism and destroying capitalism. I'll take one hardworking person, no matter how. I don't like this term either. I know I never use it, but this idea that somebody's like a menial. There are no menial workers, not in my world. Nobody's a menial in my world. There's nobody in my world that is working hard, that has a lower moral standing or lower worth than anybody else who's working hard and taking care of their families and being a good person. I don't buy the term. But just by way of example, in terms of how society loves to paint us, it's actually such an absurd thing. I almost surprise myself that I'm even talking about it. I would take a hard-working janitor, maid, a hard-working person working at a car wash, dry cleaning store, anything, a grocery person who's stocking shelves. I would take that person over professors of anything who are determined that their political opinions have to be enforced on their students. I'd take them in a heartbeat. And so when I say, going to Galt's Gulch, I don't want anybody to think that this idea is about elitism. It's the precise opposite of elitism. It's elitism that's out there that's stolen this government from us. I'm talking about the hardworking people of the country. I'm talking about regular people finding a way to work with each other as much as possible to not only deprive their enemies of their weapons, but to also provide each other with wealth and prosperity. Leaving the economy is relatively simple. Setting up an alternative economy, a parallel economy, is tougher for two reasons. One's an engineering problem, and the other one might be a physics problem. The engineering problem is figuring out how to contact people, figuring out how to get Americans to do business with other Americans, other honest people who are honest and don't want to tell you what to do, and they do what they say they're going to do, and they run an honest business, and they're dependable, and you can count on them, and they're good people and good citizens. The engineering problem is connecting these people. That is a problem that would have been insurmountable 20 years ago, 30 years ago, but now seems quite easy to do given the abilities of the internet. The ability to set up a virtual economy where goods and services are exchanged exclusively within the confines of a pro-American network of people. It doesn't sound like a terribly tough engineering problem to me. The other problem is the what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, it's right on the tip of my tongue. Coercion is the coercion problem. In other words, while setting up an economy within an economy is an easily doable thing, and the ability to trade with people of like minds, and they don't even have to be like minds, just people have the same fundamental love for this country and everything it represents, just that. That's an engineering problem, fairly easy to solve. The harder problem is, what do you do when it becomes clear to the parasites that the host organisms have left and are thriving? They're not going to like that, and they're going to do their best to get a hold of it. They're going to start looking at this, and I'm not entirely sure how to solve this. But that's why we're doing this show, because all of us are smarter than any one of us. The lines I'm thinking along are: somebody enters a network and somebody else enters the network. One guy's a dentist, the other guy is a building contractor. Becomes clear that the dentist wants an addition done to his house. He wants to add an extra room out back or enclose the patio. And the building constructor has a daughter that needs extensive orthodontic treatment, let's say. In the world that we live in now, the dentist would take his revenues from his patients. The government walks off with 30, 40, 50% of that, leaves him with this. He then takes some percentage of the money that he's allowed to keep and pays the contractor. The government takes half of what goes to that contractor. The contractor then pays the workers that he's going to have, the same way that the doctor or the dentist is paying his dental assistants. And every time he pays them, the parasites swoop in and take 25 or 30 or 40% of that. And all of that means that the majority of the work that's being done is going to people that don't do any work at all. If there was a way for the doctor and the dentist rather, and the construction manager to say, hey, I'll do the dental work and you do the construction work. You have to pay for supplies and you have to pay for labor. Stay with me on this, because the details are relatively unimportant because they're solvable. Okay, so then you've got the situation. Now, of course, the IRS would say that transaction is a taxable transaction, that there is a quid pro quo, and just because you're not exchanging money or you're doing it under the table, that doesn't mean that it's not taxable, because everything's taxable in their minds. So the question then is, how do you actually deal with this? First of all, it's a lot harder to track, and that's to our benefit. And then the other part of it is, at what point does it become an Amish barn raising? That thought just flew into my head. At what point does it... Look, I understand that the IRS is more than anxious to find a way. We're going to use an Amish barn raising as an example of voluntary effort for the good of this individual, and we expect that that individual will also put up voluntary effort in when it comes my turn. So to set up the example in the thought experiment, goes something like this. Amish are a tightly knit community of people. They have a great deal of internal cohesion. They have a lot of value of virtue, and their word is important. They don't give it often or frequently, especially to outsiders, but when they do, you can generally count on those people. So the idea of an Amish barn raising, if you ever saw Witness, if you want to see how effective they are, and it's a good movie on top of it, is that the entire community will come together and donate their time and bring food as well, so that they can put 50 or 100 workers on the scene, and they can put up an entire barn in a day, because you've got 50 or 100 extremely hardworking, highly skilled people who have dedicated this day in order to do this thing for which, on the surface, they get absolutely nothing. Looking at it as a one-time transaction, this is the prisoner's dilemma without iteration, and I'll save that for another story. Or the tragedy of the commons either. But basically, if you look at just the one transaction, you can say, well, why would I do that? Why would I give up my Saturday when I can either relax or I can go out and improve my own farm? Why would I give up my Saturday and not only go over there and work extremely hard from sunrise to sunset and bring food as well? What do I get out of that? Well, you don't get anything out of that transaction. You get nothing out of that transaction. But what you do get is you have entered into a pool of trust and obligation that says when it's time for you to have a barn raising, they will be there for you. This is a grand example of voluntary cooperation as opposed to political coercion enforced at the point of a gun. Nobody's making you go and work on this guy's farm. No one's forcing you. I'll put the peer pressure aside for a minute, but there is no physical coercion there. You do it because it's in their interest to do it, but you also mostly do it because it's in your interest to do it. So looking at the example of an Amish barn raising, how would the IRS tax that? I know how they'd want to tax it. They would want, and they probably already are, they would want to say that every one of the people who is voluntarily working on that barn is now a contract laborer, and the minimum wage for a contract laborer is this, which means that every one of those 100 people, are making $8 an hour for 10 hours. That's $80 per person for 100, and this is the tax, and then we're going to take our big piece of that. So I understand how they would want to do that. The question is, how do they do it and how do they enforce it? At what point does it become, I am going to go to my friend's house and I'm going to help him move his couch, and I'm going to put it in my truck and move him to a new apartment? Where does the line occur? And I understand, again, that the government is, as far as the government's concerned, there is no line. As far as this government is concerned, if you agree to help your brother pack a sofa from the furniture store, move it into his house and install it, the government thinks that you should be charging your brother for that amount of money, and then we will take our percentage of whatever he paid you. That's how they feel. But clearly, that's not enforceable. And so how do you move an entire economy into that kind of a relationship to protect it from the parasites? That's the problem. The more complex it becomes, the harder it is to do. The more people involved, the more of a interest that the taxers and the takers and the parasites have in it, because they see more and more money in it, and so they don't go after you moving a couch for your brother, because the effort of coming after you and enforcing that kind of thing is not worth what they would get out of it. But now if you're talking about a barn raising, now there's more money at stake, they're more interested, and they're more inclined to want to have a piece of that. And then if you're talking about building an office building or whatever, now they're real interested. Certainly, it is harder for them to see. And if they can't see it, then they can't tax it. The reason that we're in all of our troubles, sometimes you can boil this down to one or two fulcrums. We're in the political trouble we're in because we don't have a free press. We have the spending problem and the taxation problem we have for one simple reason, and no one that I know is really talking about this. But the reason we're in this world where the parasites have become so powerful as to steal elections from us is because of payroll withholding. That's the virus. That's their biological weapon. That's the genius. The genius of the parasites and the parasitical class is payroll withholding. If every single American had to write a check to the IRS out of their bank account for the amount of money that they pay in taxes, I'm talking about the people that do pay taxes, the half of the country that pays taxes, while the other half lives on the taxes of the first half. If everybody had to part with money that they had earned, that was their money, and give it to the government 4 times a year, there would be... It's not even a question of political outrage. It wouldn't happen because people would have spent the money on necessities in many cases, and so on. Payroll withholding is the single piece of magic that allows all of this to continue. It allows the IRS to continue. It allows the government to grow like a cancer. It allows unlimited spending. It allows the printing of money. It allows all of it. Chinese influence, all of it. All of it is predicated on the idea that we are going to take the population of the United States, whose output economically is not only unmatched in history, but still unmatched in the world. We have a quarter of China's population. We still significantly outperform them, despite the fact that half of America now is in the grips of this narcotic of you don't have to do anything. We'll just tax those other people and pay you. That idea is what allowed all of this to happen. And you can hear it on a daily basis. You can see it on a daily basis. And I'd be willing to bet you more than most of you are so conditioned by it that you feel the same way. And the way you know that they have succeeded on you psychologically is because with payroll withholding, 2 things happen, and they're both ruinous. The first thing is that you don't actually touch the money. If you get a job for $600 a week and you get your paycheck and you look at your paycheck's going to be $430. And that's because the government has taken the money and you never touch it. It never goes into your bank, so you never have to part with it. And since you never touched it, it was never yours, even though you did the work for it. Even though you were working at $600 a week, you're really only working at $470 a week. Could you afford to work at $470 a week? If that was their offer, you wouldn't have taken it because they'd continue to take more. So the genius of it is, number one, the people who have earned the money never get to touch the money that is set aside for the government. The government takes it off the top. They don't give you a chance to write a check to them, because if you had to write a check every year for the amount of money that they take in taxes from you on a weekly basis, you would begin to realize, my God, I made $50,000 last year, and I've just parted with $17,000 for the federal government, and here's $6,000 or whatever for the state government, and so on. You'd start to say, what am I getting for my money? I'm watching the money leave my account. I'm writing a check. Now I can't go to this vacation I wanted, or I can't build this jacuzzi that I wanted, or I can't send my kids away, all of it, the car, whatever. I can't make my rent payments anymore because I've sent this money away. What am I getting in return for it? You're not getting anything. You're not getting anything. You're just giving it to the ticks and the parasites. And if people had to realize that, then there would be not an armed revolution. There would just be like, no, people just... I'm sorry. The other thing that it does, and this is probably worse, and this is the part that everybody can connect to, is that it inverts the relationship psychologically between the person paying the taxes and the government receiving the taxes. It inverts it. And this is very simple. When you get your tax rebate, how many people do you know who are filled with joy? And I don't blame them, because the psychology of this is very subtle and very effective. How many people do you know that are filled with joy? How many times have you heard somebody say, when I get my tax check back, I'm going to have $650, or I've got a $2,000 refund coming. That's when I will go and do this. How many times have you heard that? You hear it all the time. You feel it all the time. And what you're feeling is, you're feeling like the government is kind of doing you a favor, like you're getting a check from the government. That's how people look at it. I get my tax return, all of a sudden, I'm going to have $1,800 in one place. Woohoo! Government's writing me a check for $1,800. What the government is doing is they're returning $1,800 of the $12,000 or whatever that they took from you, and they're giving it to you in one lump sum. They took it away from you on a weekly basis. You never touched the money, so you never felt it leave. And now you are getting some trivial return on what they've taken from you. And not only do you feel swell, you kind of feel, what a swell government. They just wrote me a check for $950. I'm going to go out and party. The genius of that. I mean, the genius of it. It's like leeches that have set up a blood bank to give you the occasional transfusion. They'll take a gallon and they'll give you back half a pint, and they'll make you grateful for it because you never felt the gallon of blood that they took from you go. It happened over a year. Never felt it. You felt it. You just never knew you felt it. All of these problems are largely engineering problems. Even the problem of a shadow economy, which is not a black market economy, by the way, because a black market economy is something that charges inflated prices for things that are artificially scarce. And I'm not talking about that at all. I'm talking about a real, genuine, thriving economy where things are worth a certain value and they're traded and done in that way. But this is the part that is going to be necessary to solve, because you can't just go Galt. You have to go Gulch. You have to not only stop feeding the beast, you have to take those resources and keep America and Americans alive and prospering and happy as we weather this oncoming nightmare of armies of parasites that are going to suddenly realize that their food sources are drying up, and they're not going to like that very much. Look at that. This has been the first week of moving back to America, and I would love to see in either the Facebook comments or when the show gets posted, not in the upcoming notice. Love to see in the Facebook comments. I'd love to see in YouTube comments, and especially like to see at BillWhittle.com comments about what you think of this first week. We've been able to do it on time for Bill and his geological timescale. And I don't usually refer to myself in the third person unless I'm trying to evade responsibility. 5 shows at 8 o'clock on time. So that's something anyway. So really, after 1 week, I'd love to hear what you think. Do you think we should be doing more news? Do you think we should be shorter, longer? Should we just ditch this idea, do a firewall a week? I'm open to anything. I do know that when we had an enormous boost in membership, we simultaneously realized that there's really no more ground to tread on with Bill Whittle now. We can't just simply have new members come in and cut content by half. So at the very least, these we need to be doing 40 shows a week in order to earn your money. And we've had a lot of people sign up, and we're very grateful to them about that. So we'd love to hear your suggestions on the show, and up to and including complete radical changes, little things. Should we couple of news stories a day? I don't know yet. Figuring it out as we go along. But I do think, looking back on the week, despite the fact that I'd like the numbers to be better, I think that the ideas and the concepts there have been really terrific. And I'm going to be discussing with our editor whether or not we might be able to do a best of the week, kind of a here's the best 8 or 10 minutes of the previous week. But anyway, love to hear from you. Be looking hard for those comments, so you can either leave them on YouTube. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the bell, please. Or on Facebook, and especially if you're a member at BillWhittle.com. Those are the ones that we take very, very, very seriously. The members at BillWhittle.com understand that they are getting essentially they are paying to let this be seen by as many people as possible. But on some other level, from a very fundamental level, I don't have to make 250,000 people happy a video. On the root fundamental level, I need to make our members happy on every single video. Everything beyond that is gravy. So we'll be very interested to hear your feedback, and we will be back on Monday morning at 8 o'clock one way or another with another edition of Moving Back to America. And I'd like to close again with my sincere apologies for simply having forgotten, just utterly forgotten, having done basically a Stratosphere Lounge a day for the last 5 days that I had one to do on Thursday night, and I just plain missed it. So if you're one of those people who are kept waiting, I'm very sorry about that. Anyway, that'll do it for this edition. It's made possible by the members at BillWhittle.com and the many, many individuals who have stepped up and decided that there's no more time to waste, that the country needs to be saved now, and that we need to plan and we need some ideas to do it. So those of you who made one-time decisions, we're very grateful for your support as well. Thanks for joining us. Have a great weekend. Do not, can't say don't despair, but don't let despair own you. These ideas are immortal, and the people who believe in them are the best people that ever lived on this earth. And there's nothing we can't do if we all work together as individuals. These poor, stupid, lazy, evil bastards don't stand a chance. Okay, see you Monday.